Okay, Hari Om. Let's get started.
सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावतीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। गीता ध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोस्तुते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततल्यपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवैत्रेकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दुग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथजला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमखरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोतीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननडी कैवर्तककेशवा पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाज्ञानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जनषट्परैरहरहः पीपीयमानं मुदा याद्भारतपङ्कजं कलिमला प्रध्वंसि न श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम्। Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Sunvanti Divyaistavai Vede Sangapadkramo Panishade Gayanti Yam Samaga ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः
So, Arjuna, and actually most of us, have two primary delusions. One delusion is with respect to the nature of the self, and the other delusion is with respect to the nature of one's duty. And Arjuna realizes this, and he approaches the Guru, who is Sri Bhagavan. This is called Guru Upasadhana. And we also saw that one who submits to discipline is a disciple. That's what Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda said. So oftentimes in life, we find the need to seek out some kind of guidance. And that guidance can come from a guru, a teacher, a friend, someone who is a mentor or a coach. But we see that when we get that kind of a guidance, it often helps us do better. It often helps us remove confusion. And if there is delusion, it helps us deal with it better. So there was this cow who, went out to graze and ventured into a jungle. And then suddenly she noticed that there was this lion that was, racing after her. And she turned and fled for life. And she ran as much as she could, as fast as she could, and the lion was getting closer and closer and closer. And the cow started desperately looking for some kind of an avenue, some place to escape. And then she suddenly noticed a pond. And barely evading the lion, she took a mighty leap and crashed into the pond. And the lion followed her. And they were crashing about in the pond, and soon later, both of them found each other stuck neck deep in the pond. And they were a little away from each other and could not move. So the pond turned out to be a pretty shallow swamp with a lot of mud and muck. So both of them were stuck there. And now the lion is growling at the cow, and the cow is helplessly standing out there. And the lion is, kind of saying that, I can't wait to get my teeth onto you and then feel and hear the crunching of your bones inside my mouth. And the cow is really thoughtful now. The fear has subsided a little bit. Oftentimes when you go through a really stressful situation and when you're deep in it, you find yourself, calming down, the fear subsides, the stress comes down a little, the mind starts thinking, and you also realize that your mind has started thinking. So the cow, thoughtfully actually smiles now and asks the lion, "Do you have a master?" And the lion says, "What nonsense are you talking? I am the lion. I am the king of the jungle. I am the master. What do you mean, do you have the master?" And then the cow says that, "No, but do you have the master?" See, I don't need a master. But look at you, you may be the king of the jungle, but you are stuck in this shallow pond and probably you're going to die out here. And then the lion suddenly realizes the gravity of the situation, but at the same time says, "Okay, so are you, you're also going to die out here. Maybe not in my mouth, but here." And the cow says, "No, I will not die." And the lion is like, what's going on? And the cow sees the lion is perplexed and says, "I have a master, and that master, when the master realizes that it is dusk and I have not gone back home, the master is going to come looking out for me and he is going to free me. So I have a master." Soon enough, the owner of the cow, the master, actually comes looks around, finds the cow, looks at the situation, immediately realizes, assesses the risk in terms of what is possible if the lion also comes out, but it's very clear that both of them have been stuck for hours and there's no way they are going to make it out. So he throws a rope, pulls the cow to safety. And as they are walking back home, both of them feel, one they feel is gratitude for one another, that they are there for each other. And the second thing they feel is that we wish we could save the lion, but the lion needs to allow us to save him. Without him allowing us to save him, we cannot save him. So they are forced to leave the lion there. So I found the story extremely interesting. And essentially, the cow essentially represents the surrendered heart. We talked about the surrendered heart. When you surrender to the Lord, right? That surrendered heart is represented by the cow. The lion is the egoistic mind who thinks that I know, maybe deluded, but doesn't even care about the delusion. I know what I know, and I'm the one. The muddy swamp represents the world in which we exist, the samsara. And the chase represents the struggle that we all go through in that samsara. And of course, the master is the guru, who is there to show that guidance. Some of you have asked me that, Arjuna was lucky, he got Sri Krishna as a guru. What about us? In today's time, especially, it's very difficult to find a guru. So, yes, that's very true, and sometimes they say the guru comes to you, but irrespective, if we make Srimad Bhagavad Gita our guru, that's good enough. Through Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna himself will become our guru. So, that kind of a guidance to have in life to enable you to lead the life is extremely welcome. In fact, the course that I took for Bhagavad Gita is called Master Gita, Master Life. So if you master Gita, then you are able to get the keys to mastering life. So having this guru, having this friend, having this advisor, having the mentor, the coach, the teacher, that does not make one weak at all. Actually, it may not, which is okay, but there are good chances that it may help us become stronger, at least in a specific situation. So even if we don't have someone to guide us throughout our life, it may be good to find people in specific situations to help us. And of course, we have Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So Sri Krishna then, he is the master now. And he addresses the delusion with respect to both the nature of the self from verse number 12, and then he will address it with respect to nature of the swadharma, duty. And while he is addressing this, he is repeatedly referring to Arjuna's grief. Remember Arjuna Vishada Yoga, the yoga of Arjuna's grief, sorrow. So he is repeatedly addressing that. Natvam shochitum arhasi. You will remember the last couple of classes, Sri Krishna repeatedly said this. Natvam shochitum arhasi. Do not feel the sorrow, the grief. You don't need to grieve. There is no need to grieve. That is what he says. And he also tells us that the Paramatman, which is the real self, does not die, nor is it born. And because it does not die and because it is not born, there is no need to grieve. And the Jivatman, which is the apparent self, that anyway keeps dying repeatedly and keeps being born repeatedly. So what is the need to grieve? Something that anyway is a common happening. There are so many common things that happen in the world. That is also one of the common happenings. What is there? The need to grieve. And now going further, the Lord is going to say that even though I'm giving you this knowledge, Arjuna, and there is so much of effort that you are putting, I can see that you are very attentive and the kind of effort that you are putting in, but looks like you are not getting it. There's still that confusion in your face. And it appears that this is all a wonder to you. And don't worry about it, because it is a wonder. Now, just to deviate a little bit, see, we all see that this is, there is a lot of wonder around us. But in this case, the first wonder is that of people getting interested in this topic. and then sustaining the interest. One is the first interest in terms of the feeling that attraction towards the topic. And then the second level of interest is to sustain the interest, continue the study, right? And a path like spirituality is not very easy. So, initially you feel as if the questions are not being answered. You still are going through that same, you're stuck in that shallow pond, which is muddy, the samsara of life, and you feel a little disheartened. But it is important to stick through. But that interest is also important, to inculcate that interest. And we all find that, for example, when I was a student, my brother had this orientation towards mathematics. He had this orientation towards chemistry. To me, math was, almost an enemy, like the Kauravas. And chemistry was most confusing, the formulae and all of those things. So both of them, I'm like wondering, what is it that in these two subjects that you can feel so attracted towards? And it was a huge wonder. That to me, they are strangers. To me, they are worse than strangers, but you feel so much attraction towards these subjects. So this kind of a wonder is there when you don't feel that attraction towards the subject or towards the topic. Another wonder is that of the preoccupation. Everyone is preoccupied with more pressing matters. Something or the other is happening in life, something that is urgent, something that appears more important. And that results in other important things, including spirituality, getting pushed into the background. So the nature of the human mind is this: all important aspects are forced to wait in the presence of urgent matters. And we all keep doing that. In fact, we noticed that even Arjuna, he had his entire life, he knew Sri Krishna from, almost from birth when they were young boys. But he had to wait to get into the middle of the battleground. He had to wait to get into that center. And that is when, in that urgent situation, after the conches had been blown, after that, he says that I have this doubt. I need to ask you something. Most urgent of situations. So one of the nice things that I've read in my life is, I'm sure most of you have come across this, but if you have not, I would encourage you to go through it. It's called the Important Urgent Matrix. It was, I think, originally coined by Eisenhower, and one of the best representations of this Important Urgent Matrix is Stephen Covey's representation. So, basically, if you imagine a y-axis and an x-axis, you imagine important on the y-axis and urgent on the x-axis. Obviously, as you go up or as you go right, the more important or the more urgent it becomes, okay? And then you draw a quadrant along with that, along with this x and y axis, you will get 4 boxes. And the first box is things which are not important and not urgent. Some examples are things like, when we have to do something, but we procrastinate. Escapism, escapist activities are classic, not important, not urgent activities. Mindless activities. We are just sitting in front of the TV is going on, continuing. We are just sitting there, God knows what's playing. If somebody asks you, what are you watching? You'll be like, what was that? I don't know what I'm watching. So mindless activities are those. If you spend time reading junk email, like in our community, some of these emails that come on Adda, reading all of them from top to bottom. Some of them may be interesting, but most of them are junk. Junk calls, all these are not important, not urgent. These are distractions. We must avoid them. Okay, no time, 0 time literally for each of these. The second one will be not important activities, but which are urgent activities. So this is on the bottom right side of the quadrant. These are interruptions. We have all the time, like the other day I was talking about, if you get a WhatsApp message now, you will look into that. But is it really important? Not really. There may be a sense of urgency because of that tone, especially if you have not silenced your phone, but it's not important at all. So those kind of interruptions, other aspects also include when you do things, when you spend a lot of time in others' priorities, which are important for the others, but you end up spending a lot of your time. And urgent thing that appears to be important. Okay, sometimes urgency presents, masquerades itself as important. That also is not important but urgent. For these, you've got to manage them. And the minimum amount of time you spend on them, the better. The third is important and urgent. Both important, both urgent. Crisis, okay, is both important and both urgent. If there are projects that are deadline driven, you are close to the deadline, the work seems to be more than the time that is in hand, those become both important and urgent. True emergencies, where you need to take somebody, a friend, to a hospital, pressing issues which are, they're weighing on your mind, last minute preparation, these activities are both important and urgent. These are necessities. But if we can reduce them, the better. The lesser the number of necessities, the lesser the number of both important and urgent activities in our life, the better we are. Because if they are there, we are forced to pay attention to them. There is no choice. The lesser that there are, the better. And the fourth quadrant, which is the top and the left, is important and not urgent. These are activities like planning and preparation, activities that you do which are related to your fundamental value, core value system, relationship with people who you care for, your friends, family, work colleagues, and so on. True recreation, not watching a TV with a blank face, something that is true recreation, a game that gives you the thrill, or going out in the mountains and spending a week there, something that is true recreation. And of course, spiritual pursuit. Find a path for spiritual pursuit. These are important and not urgent. They are not pressing into us. It's okay if we avoid them, right? These are extremely high quality activities. We must increase these activities. In fact, spend maximum time as much as possible on these activities. So this aspect of finding time to do important things in our life is something that eludes us most of the time. And spiritual pursuit is one of those. It is normally put off. I'll think about it after I'm 75. One of my friends says that. Okay, after 70, I'll think about it. After I retire, I'll think about it. And one beauty about this is that every person who goes through this pursuit says, I wish I had started this 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Maybe my parents should have taught me when I was a child. I wish I had done this earlier. Not even one goes through this and says, what is this? This is not useful. A person who has sincerely and seriously gone through the pursuit and not given up too soon will say 100%, I'm telling you, 100%. Oh, I wish I had started this earlier. So we'll now see what wonder is this Sri Krishna talking about. We'll go to verse 29. That's where we start today.
आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम्
आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम्
आश्चर्यवद् वदति तथैव चान्यः
आश्चर्यवत् वदति तथैव चान्यः
आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्यः शृणोति
आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्यः शृणोति
श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित्
श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित्
आश्चर्यवत् पश्यति कश्चिदेनम् आश्चर्यवद् वदति तथैव चान्यः आश्चर्यवच्चैनमन्यः शृणोति श्रुत्वाप्येनं वेद न चैव कश्चित्.
So we see this word enam twice, once in the first line and once in the second line. Enam. Enam means this. What this? This truth, this Atma Tattva, this reality that I have taught you till now, that Kashchit, very rare person. We talked about this rare person till now, right? This very rare person who has given time for this activity, who has developed interest in this activity. So interest plus importance, both time and inclination, both are required. So this truth, this ultimate truth, this rare person Kaschit, when he goes through this and he realizes that this is a rare truth, he is struck with wonder. Ascharyavat. Ascharyavat means struck with wonder. And he sees this. Why is he struck with wonder? Because he pashyati. He sees, he experiences. And after experiences and after feeling that wonder, then he shares with others, whoever is willing to listen. Okay? Vadati. Vadati means he talks about it, he shares, he expresses the wonder that he has felt. And these others, they listen to what he is saying. Shrunoti Shrutva. So they hear this, and having heard it, they are also bewildered and struck with wonder. In fact, the Upanishads also spend significant amount of time in this, and they also describe it in such a way that makes it appear even more wonderful. Okay, for example, Kathopanishad, Anoraniyan Mahato Mahiyan, says Anoraniyan, smaller than an atom. Anu is an atom, Raniyan, smaller than. Mahato Mahiyan, bigger than the biggest. Something that is smaller than the atom and at the same time bigger than the biggest. Then there's one more, Ishopanishad, in which it is said, Aneja dekam manaso javiyaha. Aneja dekam, it is motionless, it does not move. At the same time, manaso javiyaha, it moves faster than the mind. So all of these make it appear even more wonderful. You know, how is it possible? It's wonderstruck. How is that happen? How is that even possible? But we all have seen oftentimes in our life that something that is obvious does not appear in front of us. You know, how many times have we seen a key right in front of us? We have kept it on the table, or it will be there in the pocket. Like I was telling you the other day, my spectacles will be here on top of my head like this, and I'll be looking around in the house. So the obvious remains hidden by being obvious. We have seen that oftentimes in our life, and that is the truth with this ultimate reality also, the ultimate truth also. And the mind, you know, gets diverted by other things. For example, if you have been to some of these old historical buildings, you know, churches, some temples, you know, you have these colored glass which is there in the windows, in the large windows. So we all look at the colored glass, and almost everyone, the people are taking photographs, they are marveling at the colored light that is coming through the colored glass. At the same time, we all know, our intelligence knows that the white light that is behind the colored light is the source, is the main source of light. What we see is colored, but what is the true source is the white light that is behind. But still our mind gets enamored by the colored light. Exactly like that, similarly, the mind, it also gets enamored by what is unreal. Though sometimes it also knows that yes, there is this reality, but it gets enamored by what is unreal. And God says, Sri Krishna says, that one who thinks that the body has a soul is ignorant. And the one who knows that the soul has a body is the knowledgeable person. We'll go to verse 30.
Dehi nityamavadyoyam.
Dehi nityamavadyoyam.
Dehe sarvasya bharata.
Dehe sarvasya bharata.
Tasmat sarvani bhutani.
Tasmat sarvani bhutani.
Natvam shochitum arhasi.
Natvam shochitum arhasi.
Dehi nityamavadyoyam. Dehe sarvasya bharata. Tasmat sarvani bhutani. Natvam shochitum arhasi.
So Dehi is the one inside, the indweller. Indweller in what? In the Deha. Deha is the body. So dehe, you see these two words here, dehi and dehe. So dehe is inside the body. Dehi is the one inside the body, the indweller inside the body. Nityam avadhyoyam. This indweller, Nityam, is always, avadhyo, is indestructible. And because of that, tasmad, therefore, sarvani bhutani, for all beings, natvam shochitum arhasi. There is no need for you to grieve. You should not be grieving. So within all bodies is that which lies beyond the body. It's there everywhere. The electricity example, remember? Electricity charges around us, inside us, all over. Do we see it? No. But when we harness it in a cable, take it to 240 volts, then it can work wonders. So this is around us, within us, and therefore it beholds you, Partha. So Sri Krishna uses this, beholds you, and therefore it beholds you to not grieve. And with this, Sri Bhagavan, he concludes the teaching pertaining to the self, to the Atma Vidya portion of the teaching. And now he begins to address the Swadharma Vidya, or he addresses the delusion with respect to duty. And he says that from the standpoint of the self, you ought not to grieve. It does not behold you to grieve. And from the standpoint of duty, there is no reason to grieve. Let's see why. We'll go to the next verse.
Swadharmamapi chavikshya
Swadharmamapi chavikshya
na vikampitum
arhasi
dharmyadiyudachreyonyat
dharmadiyudhyashreyonyat
kshatriyasya na vidyate
kshatriyasya na vidyate
swadharmamapi chavikshya na vikampitum arhasi dharmyadiyudachreyonyat kshatriyasya na vidyate.
So he says cha aveksha, which is and, cha is and, aveksha, thinking about, think carefully, thinking carefully about, thinking about what? Swadharmam api, about your duty. Swadharmam, swa is one's or your, and dharmam is duty. Api, your duty. Na arhasi vikampitum, you should not waver. Na arhasi, do not. Vikampitum, do not waver. When you think about your duty, do not waver. Why? He kshatriya. He is because. Kshatriya, for a soldier, for a warrior, na vidyate shreya. Nothing is higher, nothing is bigger, nothing is higher than a righteous war. Anyat dharmyad yuddha. So for a Kshatriya, you should not waver thinking about everything, all of this from the perspective of your duty. Be steadfast, do not waver, because for a true warrior, nothing is higher than a righteous war. Anyat dharmyad yuddha. And then he goes on to say, next verse,
Yadrichaya chopapannam
Yadrichaya chopapannam
Svargadvaramapavritam
Swargadvaramapavritam
Sukhinashatriya partha
Sukhinakshatriya partha
Labhante yuddhamidrisham
Labhante yuddhamidrisham
Yadrichaya chopapannam Svargadvaramapavritam Sukhinashatriya partha Labhante yuddhamidrisham.
So yadrichaya means something that happened on its own, something that we did not want to happen, we did not invite, we did not cause to happen. Something that has happened and we are faced with it. Something in the outside environment that we are faced with. Only the blessed have an opportunity to face this kind of a situation and perform one's duty. So just imagine, now we are going through this COVID situation. We often see, and I'm sure this is true for others, but definitely true for most of us who live in the colony that I do. We have these farmers who come with their produce to sell here. Earlier, it used to go through agents to the, sabzi mandi, or to their shops and so on. But here, the farmers have directly started coming and, setting up shop within the colony. And, so this farmer is taking his produce, and he's a poor farmer. So he is, cycling away. And he has quite a bit that he has been able to produce, and he is carrying all of that to come and sell in our colony, let us say. Okay. And he's cycling, and this is the situation. COVID, he is not having somebody to come and pick it from his farm. He needs to go. So this is yadrichaya. He never asked for it. He never wanted it. It happened on its own. The COVID came on its own. Plus now his produce is there. He needs to go. The situation, all of the situation is yadrichaya, unexpected. Unexpected times for him. And as he is growing, another big problem is there, which is an extremely strong headwind. And that headwind is making it even more harder for him to go. But he needs to do this. It's his duty. Why is it his duty? Because one, it's his produce, his creation that needs to find a, supply chain, last point in the supply chain. And two, because he needs to feed his family. That is his sacred duty. So he is going, performing his duty. And the fact that when he thinks that this is my duty, let me do it, he actually feels good about it, in spite of the hardship, the strength that is required, the wind that is blowing, all of that. He feels better that he is doing it when he thinks of it from a duty point of view. And suddenly there is a tractor that comes by and comes in front of him, slow moving. You have seen these in village roads. You will see the slow moving, they are crawling, the tractors. If the farmer wants, he can probably cycle faster than the tractor. But it's a slow moving tractor, comes in front of him. What does it do? Shields him from the wind. And his cycling becomes a lot more easy. And he's able to go and, an easier ride, go and perform his duty, sell his produce and so on. So that is what God says. The tide changes favorably for the one who is focused on performing one's duty. Anyone who is focused sincerely on performing one's duty, the tide will change favorably, come what may. And Swargadwaram apavritam. The doors of the heaven are opened. Swargadwaram, Swarga, heaven, Dwaram, door, apavritam are opened up. For who? For the Sukhina Kshatriya, the warrior, who is happily going about doing his duty. Like this farmer who thought about doing his duty and felt good about it. So all these Kshatriyas, warriors who are happily going about fighting that battle, they are in the war field, it's a reality. When you're in the battlefield, the next bullet can be coming with your name written on it when you're a soldier. But you're happy because you're doing your duty. For those warriors, the doors of the heaven open. And the doors of the heaven open means just does not mean that you die and go to heaven. Of course, if you die, you will go to heaven. But even if you don't die in the battlefield, even if you don't die while performing your duty, heaven comes to you, meaning good things happen. We will see that later on also. We'll go to the next verse.
Ata chetvam imam dharmyam.
Ata chetvam imam dharmyam.
Samgramam na karishyasi.
Samgramam na karishyasi.
Tata swadharmam kirtim cha.
Tata swadharmam kirtim cha.
हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि
हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि
अथ चेत्त्वमिमं धर्म्यं सङ्ग्रामं न करिष्यसि ततः स्वधर्मं कीर्तिं च हित्वा पापमवाप्स्यसि
Ata chetvam. But then if you, in case you, okay, so God is saying, Ata chetvam. If you don't do that, if you don't perform your duty, and what? If you, imam dharmyam samgramam. Samgramam means war. Dharmyam means righteous. This righteous war, imam dharmam samgramam, this righteous war, you do not fight. A war that cannot be avoided. A war that could not be avoided. All other avenues have been exhausted. In fact, there is a beautiful treatise called Arthashastra by Chanakya. Chanakya was a very famous political commentator, advisor to kings. His name is also Kautilya. He lived around the 3rd century BC. And he wrote Arthashastra. It was about, he wrote a lot of text about, running government, managing the finances of the country, manage how the government should be run, and so on and so forth. One of the famous ones was on conflict resolution. And there he talks about 4 steps for conflict resolution. The first one is Sama. Sama means talks. When you talk to each other, try to resolve, conciliation, adopt a conciliatory approach. That is the first one. The second one is Dana. Dana means gifts, compensation, where you give something to. So to avoid that conflict, you give something up. Maybe when you have a fight with your boyfriend or girlfriend and send a bouquet of flowers or some chocolates, that is Dana. Dana can also be in a different, slightly changed context, Dama. Dama means paying the price or value. So Dana is proactive in nature as a gift. Dama is reactive in nature, to pay the price or value. The third step is Bheda. Bheda means use of logic or trickery to what? To manipulate the mind of the other party. Okay, trying to convince, trying to do some trickery to manipulate the other person. And if all these 3 have not worked, neither of them have worked, the fourth one is Danda. Danda means use of force, armaments, war. That is the fourth one. And Sri Krishna is saying that everything has been done. All the other, everything has been tried. Nothing has worked. This is something that has been brought upon you. Not only did you not want it, you tried to not have it. But it's been forced upon you. And now after this, if you don't fight. And by the way, righteous war or a dharma samgramam is also a war that is not fought for personal gain. It is for the collective good of the society. So Sri Krishna is saying that we have done everything to avoid the war. It's come upon us. Plus, this is the good for the society, because you cannot allow the society to be ruled by the Kauravas, the kind of, criminalities that they are perpetuating into the society. So it's for the collective good, and that is why it is dharmam samgrama. And if you avoid, which means what are you doing? You are not performing your duty. Hitva. Hitva means abandon. Hitva swadharmam. You are abandoning your own duty. Having abandoned one's own duty. Now, swadharmam also can be interpreted as swa means one's own. Dharmam means the merit or the punyam. So one's own punya, one's own duty. So we've talked about the various interpretations of dharma. Dharma in this context can be interpreted as duty and can also be interpreted as punya or merit. So having abandoned, hitva, one's own merit, one's own punya. So not only have you abandoned your duty, you have abandoned your, remember the farmer story? So much of duty he did, and he had accumulated so much of produce, which is all beautiful farm fresh produce. So if he says, I will not go against the wind, I will not cycle, I'm not going to do this, let me go back home, it's easier. Cycling towards Palm Meadows is harder. Cycling towards my home with the wind is much easier, so forget it. So what would have happened? He would have won, the family would have slept without food, hungry. Okay, there would have been a lot of internal tension and stress because of that. And two, the work that he had done, the duty that he had fulfilled to get this merit, all that also goes for a waste. So God says that if you abandon your duty, if you abandon the punya that you have so far accumulated, papam avapsyasi, sin shall enter. So sin, what is the sin? Sin, we do not need to go to hell, to take stock of what sin is, or, to paint a picture of what is the impact of sin. Neither do we need to go to heaven to paint a picture of the impact of our merit, of all the punya. Like this farmer, if he does not go, all that mental stress that comes, the children crying before they go to sleep, right? Because of what? Because he couldn't go sell his produce, get some money, buy something for his dinner for his family. Because most people do live hand to mouth. So that night they are going to go hungry. Not only that, he's going to look at all his rotting vegetables and feel that pang of guilt, pang of, not dislike. All of that is sin. So we don't need to go to hell to find out what sin is. Also, remember, duty must be performed on time, in a timely manner. So if our duty is to feed someone food, then we should do it when the person is hungry, not when we want the person to eat. For example, if a mother is allowing a child to go to sleep crying out of hunger, then she has not performed her duty. And after the child sleeps, prodding the child awake to feed. You should feed when the child is hungry. You should do your duty when the time is to do your duty. The time now for Arjuna is to fight. The time now is not for him to, do something else in life. Every background, the entire Mahabharata story leading to that point, Senayo Ubhayor Madhye, that last minute, situation, pressing matter, making important something into urgent, converting into urgent. After that, when his time is to fight, he's thinking of something else. So then God says that if you wipe out your own fame by not doing your duty, a regret will come inside you. It's like that farmer looking at that, rotting fresh vegetables that he was supposed to have sold, and that regret is there. Regret comes either by committing bad action or by not committing good action. Both these lead to a sense of regret. And that sense of regret that causes an imbalance, stress, disturbance inside the mind is sin. And then he also says, Hitva Kirtim. Hitva means having abandoned what? Kirtim. Kirtim is fame. So when you abandon the fame that you have already got. So Arjuna, is a very famous guy. And if you're going to abandon all of that, it's going to lead to infamy. And infamy or akirtim can come, initially it will come as criticism, then it will come as insult, then it will come as infamy, and then it will come as dishonor. So all of these in step by step you will receive. And then he beautifully in the next 3 verses, he beautifully goes on to analyze this aspect of infamy at 3 levels. The first is at the level of all beings, everybody, all beings. The second is at the level of his well-wishers, Arjuna's well-wishers, people who think good of Arjuna. And the third is at the level of the enemies. So it's true for all of us. If we don't perform our duty, all people, everybody, people, strangers who we don't know, those who are our well-wishers, those who are our enemies, all of them, there is going to be impact at their levels. And we will see now in the next 3 verses what that will be. So we'll do all 3 together, 34, 35 and 36.
Akirtim chapi bhutani.
Akirtim chapi bhutani.
कथयिष्यन्ति ते व्ययाम्
कथयिष्यन्ति ते व्ययाम्
सम्भावितस्य च कीर्तिर्
सम्भावितस्य च कीर्तिर्
मरणाद् अतिरच्यते
मरणादतिरिच्यते
भयाद्रणाद् उपरतम्
भयाद्रणादुपरतम्
मंस्यन्ते त्वां महारथाः
मन्स्यन्ते त्वां महारथः
येषां च त्वं बहुमतो
येषां चात्वं बहुमतो
भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम्
भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम्
अवाच्यवादांश्च बहून्
अवाच्यवादांश बहून्
वदिष्यन्ति तवाहिताः
वदिष्यन्ति तवाहिताः
निन्दन्तस्तव सामर्थ्यम्
निन्दन्तस्तव सामर्थ्यम्
ततो दुःखतरं नु किम्
ततो दुःखतरं नु किम्
अकीर्तिं चापि भूतानि कथयिष्यन्ति ते व्ययाम् सम्भावितस्य च कीर्तिर्मरणाद् अतिरच्यते भयाद्रणाद् उपरतम् मंस्यन्ते त्वां महारथाः येषां च त्वं बहुमतो भूत्वा यास्यसि लाघवम् अवाच्यवादांश्च बहून् वदिष्यन्ति तवाहिताः निन्दन्तस्तव सामर्थ्यम् ततो दुःखतरं नु किम्.
So in verse 34, the first word of the second line, Sambhavitasya. Sambhavitasya means well-respected person, well-known person. An honored human being, someone who has been honored. So Arjuna is a well-known, well-respected, honorable person in society. He's always been in the limelight, loved by everyone, except maybe a couple of Kauravas. Some Kauravas also were deeply enamored and in love with him. And if you, a person like this who has been so well honored, who has such a position in society, if you do not perform your duty, then what will happen? Bhutani, all beings means the Devas, the Rishis, the Manushyas, everybody, all the beings, all Bhutani, all beings, Avyayam, for time immemorial, endlessly, non-stop. That is what Avyayam means. Again and again and again, repeatedly, forever. What will they do? They will, Katha Ishyanti, will speak of you. Katha Ishyanti, will speak of you in a very dishonorable manner, a kirtim. They will all speak of you in a very akirtim chapi bhutani, katavishyanti te vyayam. Forever, everlasting, they will speak of you in a dishonorable manner. And then he says, this akirtir, the second line, akirtir means this dishonor. What this dishonor? This dishonor of the honored, falling from the peaks, having reached that crescendo, and then Tiger Woods, for example. I mean, everybody used to look up to him. What an achiever in life. And then suddenly things in life, took a turn and he crashed, falling down from pinnacle of achievement. From that kind of an honor, you become dishonored. And that akirtim, that dishonor of someone who's been honored already, that is maranad atirichyate, is worse than death. And then he says, Bhayadranat means fear from battle, from fear and with fear from the battle. Uparatam, withdrawn. So, who people will think like that? Who? The Maharatha. We talked earlier about the Maharathas, right? Maharathas are warriors who can single-handedly deal with 10,000 or more soldiers and other warriors. With battalions have that much of strength, a Maharatha can single-handedly fight that battalion. So these Maharathas, they will think, Mamsyante Tvam, they will think about you. How? That you ran away from the battlefield, you withdrew from the battlefield. Bhayaranaduparatam, in fear. And these are who are these Maharathas? They are Maharathas about whom you had so much of thought. You thought of them, you give them so much prestige. Of whom Yesham, Tvam, you, Bahumato, you have placed them in high esteem. And in front of them, Bhutva, with them, you will attain, Yasyasi, you will attain what? Laghavam. Laghavam means smallness, you will become small. Such an honorable person, you will become small. You will fall from grace. You will fall from your esteem. And then he continues, Avachyavadam. Avachyavadam. These enemies, your enemies, he's now coming to enemies. What will they do? They will speak words. What kind of words? Words that cannot be spoken. Those bad words that cannot be spoken. So he says, Tava ahita. Ahita means enemies. Tava is your enemies. Vadishyanti, they will say these unspeakable words that cannot be expressed. And not only that, they will nindanta. Nindanta means cavilling. Cavilling is nothing but, making petty observations. Oh, Arjuna is like this, useless chap. He actually, had developed fear. Can you believe it? Arjuna developed fear. Petty observations. On what? Tava samarthyam. On your capacity, your strength, your prowess. A person like you, your capacity that people used to be jealous about, people used to admire, people used to think that they will never get it in 10 lives, and they will make petty observations on that kind of a capacity, on that kind of prowess that you are supposed to have. And what could be greater sorrow than this? You are talking about you being under grief. Future, if you do this, will be even more, give you more cause for grief. Kim Dukhataram tato. What could be more sorrowful than this? For a warrior like you, for a celebrated soldier like you. No one would say that you are deluded. Okay, oh, I have delusion. You told me that you have delusion. That's what Bhagavan is telling Krishna. No one will know that you are deluded. No one will say that you are deluded. I am not going to go tom-tomming about that, oh, poor Arjuna was deluded. And no one is going to, think that, oh, this philosophy of non-violence of Arjuna, such a great person, he had this philosophy of non-violence. Ahimsa paramo dharma bhava. Paramo dharma, the param dharma is ahimsa, that bhava, like Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi consistently from the beginning, espoused the cause of non-violence. This guy Arjuna, warrior, learns everything, goes to heavens, get weapons, and goes to the middle of the battlefield. Suddenly, non-violence came into his, got injected from nowhere. Nobody will think of that. People will just speak unspeakable words, and you will fall from grace. And then he continues further. Next verse.
Hato va prapsyasi swargam.
Hato va prapsyasi swargam.
Jitva va bhokshyasi mahim.
Jitva va bhokshyasi mahim.
Tasmad uttishta kaunteya.
Tasmad uttishta kaunteya.
Yuddhaya krita nishchayaha.
Yuddhaya krita nishchayaha.
Hato va prapsyasi swargam. Jitva va bhokshyasi mahim. Tasmad uttishta kaunteya. Yuddhaya krita nishchayaha.
Hato, slain. That is, if you die. Remember, Arjuna said, I am casting away my weapons. I am going to get slain. Without fighting. But after fighting, if you are slain, prapsyasi, you will obtain swargam, heaven. And if you, on the contrary, you win, you conquer everybody, jitva, you have won, then bhukshase, you will enjoy what? Mahim. Mahim means the earth. So slain, you will go to heaven, and victorious, you will enjoy the earth. So now Krishna is saying, so if you perform your duty, what will happen? If you perform your duty, there are two outcomes. One outcome is that you will be killed. The other outcome is that you will win. If you are killed, you will go to heaven. If you win, you will enjoy the earth. Therefore, tasmad, stand up, uttishta. Uttishta means stand up. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. And stand up how? Stand up with a resolve to fight. Kritascha means with resolve, with that resolve to yuddha, to fight. Stand up with that resolve. This is actually a divine call by Sri Krishna for all of us. Divine call to all human beings. Oftentimes we get melancholy, depressed in our situation, thinking about what is this being perpetuated upon us. In that situation, discard that melancholy, is what God is saying. In the face of life's challenges, and come forward and play this game of life as best as you can, with a firm determination and a firm resolve to strive, to make an effort, to win. So discard all the melancholy, don't play gamely, face the challenges of life, do your duty, and strive and win. And worst case, if you don't win, you will get heaven anyway. It's a divine call for all of us. We must read this verse a few times, during this week. I would encourage all of you to do that. We go to the next verse, the last for today, and one of my favorites.
Sukha dukkhe same kritva.
Sukha dukkhe same kritva.
Labha labhau jaya jayau.
Labha labhau jaya jayau.
Tato yuddhaya yujyasva.
Tato yuddhaya yujyasva.
Naivam papamavapsyasi.
Naivam papamavapsyasi.
Sukha dukkhe same kritva. Labha labhau jaya jayau. Tato yuddhaya yujyasva. Naivam papamavapsyasi.
So sukha dukkhe, in pleasure and in pain. Same means same, level. Kritva, having made sukha, pleasure and pain the same. Having made pleasure and pain the same, not just pleasure and pain. Labha labhav, gain and loss. Jaya jayav, jaya ajayav, victory and defeat. Having made pleasure and pain, victory and defeat, gain and loss, all of these extremities same, level. Having made that, after having done that, then tato, yuddhaya yujyasva, engage. Yujyasva means engage. Engage in what? Engage in the yuddha, battle. And if you do that, naivam papam avapsyasi, you will not incur any sin. So basically, God is saying, and to all of us also, make pleasure and pain, victory and defeat, gain and loss, all of these, make it level, make it same, and then fight the challenges of life gamely with the focus of doing your duty. And when you do that, you will not incur any sin. So plants essentially, they react. For example, the touch me not plant is the best example of plant reaction. Or the sunflower, when the sun comes, it faces the sun, right? They react to external situations, right? Animals respond. Animals have more sense of intellect and emotion. They respond to various situations. They can even proactively respond. They don't necessarily have to react. And they're also able to physically move around, whereas plants are mostly stationary. But man alone, human beings alone, can work. And work means what? Work means karma yoga. Karma is action. Karma yoga is intelligent action. Karma yoga is converting basic karma through Ishvara Arpana Buddhi and Prasada Buddhi. We have seen all this earlier. Through that attitude, you convert ordinary karma into karma yoga. And that karma yoga is nothing but work. When we say work, work without that kind of an attitude is not work. That, even plants can do and animals can do. It is impulsive action. Whereas human beings do not act impulsively. You do, we all do act impulsively, but mostly we don't. And essentially, again, Swami Chinmayananda said, expressing one's impulse is the dignity of an animal. Human beings do not just express their impulse. The glory of the human being, on the contrary, is to use the discriminative capacity, the viveka. Remember the first one of sadhana chatushtayam, viveka. Using the discriminative capacity and working intelligently. That is the capability or the glory of the human being. And when we act intelligently, keeping the context of what is outside us, that is when we have positive outcome of work. And that discriminative capacity also gives us a more creative aspect to the human being, a turn to the human being compared to other life. For example, you take beehives, okay, and you take cobwebs. You see cobwebs more than beehives, but nowadays you're seeing more and more beehives. They are marvels, okay. They are architectural marvels. They are so beautiful. But these cobwebs and beehives, they have been like this since spiders were born in the planet, and since bees were born in this planet. For generations, they do it exactly the same way, because it is something that has been inculcated into them. There's no improvement. We do not make today's cobweb is not better than yesterday's cobweb, because it is built on instinct, a natural instinct that has been injected inside them by nature. But human beings, look at the architectural marvels of the human beings, how it changes over a period of time, how they are adapted, how an old pyramid, if you go to Las Vegas, there is this casino, I forget the name, but it's based on the pyramids of Egypt. So it's adapted, and it's a beautiful architectural marvel. And out of the top of the pyramid in Las Vegas, there's this torchlight that comes that really goes almost beyond the earth, beyond the stratosphere. So human beings are able to, because of intelligent work, we are able to convert impulsive action into something that is productive. And when we are doing this, when we are leaving this world, all these three possibilities, which are what? Which are sukha dukkhe, which is pleasure and pain, jaya jaya, victory and defeat, and labha labha, profit and loss, and various other extremities. They all keep coming in front of us. And in the face of these extremities, we have to be balanced, maintain equipoise. And when you maintain that equipoise, then an inner tranquility comes inside that person. A person who is able to look at all of these in a level playing field, in a level field, the inner tranquility descends inside. And thereafter, life is not up when you look at it in level. After that, you have to go and face life. And you face life with this tranquility. You face life with this equipoise. And when you face and when you battle through the various challenges of life with this tranquility and equipoise, there is no papa or no swing. Naivam papam avapsyasi. Which means no internal disturbances take place. And without those internal disturbances, it is easier to achieve the Parama Purushartha. Without success, there is no meaning in failure. Okay, failure doesn't mean anything without success. Tall doesn't mean anything without short. And without failure, what is success? It's not there anyway. So people who observe their life in totality, people who do not get bothered by minor wins and losses, these people are truly blessed. So have that conviction. Arjuna, you are a man of conviction. Maintain that conviction and stand up. life is like a swimming in the ocean. You know, when you're swimming in the ocean, the waves are coming at you. You have a choice. Either you can get drowned under the waves, or you stand there and the waves will crash you. And sometimes the waves are hard. You will not be able to stand. You will fall. They'll topple you. Okay. And we can keep crying, you know, that, oh my God, the wave hit me so hard. Or you play with the waves. You know, you swim under them, you swim above them, and don't complain. Don't be like a rock, allowing it to crash and then saying that it crashed and it took me down. Play with them. Small waves, jump over them. Big waves, go under them, and so on and so forth. And when somebody does one's duty for the sake of doing the duty, and in fact, more than for the sake of doing the duty, doing it as a worship. When you do that, and when you feel happy, the cyclist who was taking that, I'm doing my duty, and that gives you a sense of happiness. And when you feel happy while doing the duty, not waiting for what's going to happen, how much money am I going to make, what will I do with that money? You know, he's not thinking about that. He's gamely cycling. That happiness has a purity of its own. The quality of that happiness is immense, much better than quality of any other happiness that you get. And when you do that, you do not incur any disturbances. And with that, Sri Bhagavan, he concludes his teachings from a perspective of standpoint of duty, the Swadharma aspect of it. Okay. So with this, we come to the close of today's session. Thank you. Hari Om. We'll say the prayer.
Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.
Thank you. Hari Om. Thoughts, questions, comments?
Srini, you talked about internal disturbance. What do you mean by internal disturbance, or what specifically you?
The best way I can give is with that example of mine, right? When you don't do your duty, when you do not perform your duty, and when you know that you have not performed your duty, there is a level of stress. You feel inside, you feel disturbed. For example, if that cyclist had not gone back home because it was so difficult to, go cycle against the wind and so on and so forth, he would have looked at the vegetables would have got spoiled, they would have gone waste, and he would have had thoughts like, oh my God, my family is dying of, is going to sleep hungry, my produce has gone for waste, why did I have to see this, it's sad, it's loss, there's so much sadness, all that is disturbance. So all the negative tendencies that come because of not performing. If he had performed his duty, let us say he had not been able to sell. Let us say he came back home with all of his produce. Still the family went home hungry, slept hungry. Okay? But at least he feels that I tried, I did what I could, I did my best. Yes, I failed and I need to go back. And it's like I was talking about Federer losing a game. You lose a game, you say, okay, I lost this game. Let me try and win the next game. So you're gamely fighting on from one challenge to the other in life. But if you don't even play, then there is this melancholy that comes inside without even realizing. And over a period of time, the person becomes a sad person.
So the Atma Galani is the word, right? Self-pity. I think Atma Galani is self-pity.
Possible, yeah. I mean, Atma, Glanir,
Pity.
The way Krishna is telling Arjun to be, seeing things at par, like sadness, happiness, doing your dharma. So is he asking him to become a saint? I mean, we'll all be saints if we start looking at things so well, properly, not feeling bad, not feeling good. We'll be saints.
No, in fact, we'll come little later. Be patient. We'll talk about, Sri Krishna doesn't leave any topic, okay? We'll talk about who a saint is. Then you will know who really a saint is. This is a human being. A human being can do this. That is why Sri Krishna is telling now. Okay? All he's saying is, do not, if you get too happy when something good is happening, and then suddenly that good stops, the chances are that you will sink. The pendulum will swing to the other extreme. But had the pendulum been firm, chances are that it will not swing to the other extreme. That is all Sri Krishna is saying. It is possible for every human being to do it. So it's not, this is a sthita pragya, a stable, we'll come to it next time, I think. If not next time, then following Saturday. Okay? So sthita pragya is probably the first step towards becoming a saint.
Okay. So there's a lot to come, I think. Yeah.
In fact, this verse, the last verse that we did today, that is an instruction. Okay, this is God's instruction. So he has just now only given an instruction. Sukha dukkhe same kritva labha labha jaya jaya. And if you do this, follow this instruction, tato yuddha, you just go and fight your challenges in life, you will not see any sin. So it's an instruction. Now, from the next verse onwards, it will start. And Arjuna asks some fantastic questions. Now it will be, how do I do this? How do I maintain this equipoise? That will come now in the next few verses.
This is Aditi. I have a question. Coming to the same example of the cyclist you quoted. Yes, he's coming over, he's doing his duty. It gives him a lot of happiness. If he doesn't do that, that leads to internal disturbance. But looking at the current situation, don't you think he's taking a lot of risk as far as the COVID thing is there?
Repeat that. In the current situation, as far as COVID thing is there, what is the core question?
The core question is that, yes, he's doing the duty. He is getting a lot of happiness. But at the same time, he's putting himself at risk. And he's also putting his family at risk by coming all the way.
True.
Okay. So how do you kind of...
So, who is Arjuna? Arjuna, remember we said dharmasya samgramam, righteous war. So, it's a righteous war. Arjuna is a soldier. Not only is he a soldier, he is a commander. Not only is he a commander, he is a king. It is sacred duty for him. And why? Not just because it's a righteous war, also because it will be for the welfare of the society. In that situation, it's not a risk, it's his duty. It's like I said, a soldier, the next bullet may come with your name written on it, but the soldier has to be there and has to perform it happily also, right? But if a person is just going for this, so restaurants have opened. Is it duty to go and eat in a restaurant? Whose duty? For whom? It's nobody's duty. So if there is, by the way, last Saturday, I can share now, when I was doing this session, satsang, I was actually running fever. And that fever went for 4 or 5 days. So I got a COVID test done. Thankfully, I'm free of COVID as of now. Okay. So this person came home fully, completely attired, top to bottom, couldn't see his face and so on. That person was doing his duty. He has to come. No question about it. It's doing his duty. That's one part of it. The other part of it is that restaurant is open now, and I am a manager in the restaurant. I'm a waiter in the restaurant. I need to go, it's my work, because it's like that farmer. If I go for my work, I'll get my salary. If I get my salary, I will be able to feed my young children. For me, it is a duty. Okay. So if I have to perform that duty, if without that performing that duty, something is going to suffer. So if Arjuna is not going to fight, what is going to happen? The society is going to continue to reel under the adharma of the Kauravas. Okay, more and more atrocities are going to be atrocity at the level of Draupadi. Imagine in a kingdom that happened, how many millions of hundreds of thousands of atrocities would have happened for normal women in the society if it happened to the queen. So if he had not done it, he would have been responsible for those atrocities. Direct blame. Okay, forget a person who is committing that atrocity. Direct blame on Arjuna for allowing it to happen. It's like a policeman allowing in front of him the bank got robbed and you stood and watched. Didn't do his duty. For that person, there is sin. But for someone who needs to just go and, quote unquote, false entertainment, right? We talked about sitting in front of a TV and looking at it. You should spend least amount of time in that. It's not even is it important, not even is it urgent. So we have to, that's why I went through that in our context, in modern context today. If we plot that important urgent matrix, obviously your top duty will come as important. Okay. And if it is urgent, if your child has to be taken to school, yes, it has to be, it's a pressing matter. It's an urgent matter. You have to, there's no choice. But for us, going and eating in a restaurant is neither important nor urgent, nor is it a duty. It's a risk. And if that risk leads to somebody falling sick, then if we can take responsible risks, it's okay. We know that this restaurant is safe, this is what they have done. Okay, then it may be okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I have another one too. Sri Krishna talking about Swadharma, talking about duties, asking Arjuna to fight the war. He's a warrior, so he should be doing that. But he also giving arguments like, if you do not do that, what will people say? They will call you, we did that in the, I think, 2 verses.
Yes.
1 or 2 verses covered that.
Yes.
I don't find that very convincing. I mean, asking Arjuna to fight just because, if he doesn't, then people would not call him a warrior, or, they would talk ill about him. That is not a very convincing argument, according to me. I mean, fighting a war just because, so that people talk good about him. No.
Okay. So, by the way, the last sentence I will rephrase. Fighting a war not because the people will talk good about him. Fighting a war because if he doesn't fight the war, people will talk bad about him. Yeah. That is what Sri Krishna says. Sri Krishna doesn't say if you should fight the war because people will praise you. He says you're already an honored person. You will fall from grace.
Yeah,
so Sri Krishna does not leave any stone unturned. Okay. He gives every possible 360 degrees he covers. Okay.
Yeah.
So he doesn't, and by the way, what he doesn't cover, Arjuna asks. We will see that going forward, right? So he is covering it from all perspectives. So it's not just this. These are 3 verses which talk about the disgrace or the infamy that will come to him. But Sri Krishna gives another so many reasons other than this 3. If each verse represents 1 degree, 360 degrees he covers. Okay. So these are part of the whole. And these are reasons which you should do your duty. If you don't do, and for a warrior, no warrior wants to be fallen from disgrace. A soldier, you see army men today, or air force, or service people, naval people. You see them today. One of the key things for them is honor, duty, self-respect, dignity. They pay a lot of importance to all of that. They are soldiers. For a soldier to fall from disgrace is extremely dishonorable. Okay, that is the mind facet that Krishna is. So Krishna is appealing to Arjuna in various ways. It may not work for Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, suppose Mahatma Gandhi had been a student, maybe it may not work. but there is something else which Krishna will say which will work. So he has covered every personality.
Yeah.
I
Thank
think,
you.
yeah, I think Krishna is also using Sam, Dam, Danda, Bheda. All
Yeah.
this so in practical.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Srini, one question. You said you talked about the importance and urgent metrics, and you also said that reducing the important and urgent activities might lead to more relaxed, uh, life. Is that I don't know if you meant that, but I thought you said it is better to have less number of important and less number of urgent activities. But sometimes what I do is every day when I start my day, what I do is I look at what is important and what is urgent for that day. And most of the time there are many things, right? And if I look at from a day or a week or a month perspective, there are many items that will be important and urgent. So how do we ensure that on a day to day or a week to week basis we reduce these numbers, or we are in a better position by lowering these numbers?
Sure. Yeah. So I said, yes, I did say that we should try and reduce these activities, which means, see, these activities are those which are forced upon us mostly, okay, because of the urgency. And why has it become urgent? Because we allowed it to become urgent. We did not act on it proactively. See, some activities are urgent. Right now, if I have to rush to hospital, is urgent. It's not avoidable. That you must do. You cannot reduce that. But suppose you plan better. Planning better is what? Planning better is an important and not urgent activity. If you had planned better, if you had done that quadrant 4 work better, then your quadrant 3 work, which is important and urgent, will reduce. There are more than half of the activities that fall under the important and urgent category will come down if you do the important but not urgent well. And vice versa also. The more that the activities that are there in the other 3 categories come down, the more time you get for the important and not urgent work, which is the best quality work. So take spiritual pursuit, for example. Most people will not find this 1 hour. It's very difficult to find this 1.5 hours. Okay. Why? Because something else. Because there is some other work, something which is more pressing, something which is more urgent, something which is equally important. Whereas if you reduce the time, that's why I said reduce. Okay.
Right. Okay.
If you reduce the time in this activity, then the chances are that you will be able to increase the time for the important activities. That's the idea.
Okay. Right. Thanks, Srini.
Any other thoughts? We'll now actually, the remaining portion of chapter 2 is enthralling. It is really engaging as well as enthralling. We'll enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to it. Okay, if no further questions, then thank you. Hari Om. Thank you all. Hari Om.